the DeFUD Podcast.
First, a model that is connected to internal data sources and may flatten your internal authorization layer. For example, we have a lot of stories of employees or customers leveraging Microsoft Copilot and then go accessing using the chatbot sensitive data. And sometimes it creates unauthorized access to sensitive data.
Such an impactful story. I think we've covered so much in this segment, from working with fintech, talking about regulation, of course, your illustrious background as a CIO at IDF itself, and also finally the success story for the healthcare organization. Hello and welcome to the DeFUD Podcast. In this episode, we are super honored to have today with us Matan Getz, who's the co-founder and CEO at AIM Security. AIM Security is a holistic generative AI security platform. Prior to AIM, Matan served in the Israeli Defense Forces for 13 years, with his last position being the Chief Information Officer and also Vice President of Research and Development. Wow, what a background. Excited to have you with us, Matan.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Thank you for hosting me on this exciting podcast.
For sure. And we are excited to have you as our first founder in the DeFUD podcast series. So maybe let's start with a get to know you question. Obviously, you've started this company in a very hot and top of mind area today within cybersecurity. Can you share with us a formative experience that led to where you are today?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Most of my time is spent in the IDF, in the Israeli Defense Force. And I got the opportunity to take some positions in the cybersecurity offensive side, but also in the cybersecurity defensive side. So I think it was a very unique experience doing both. And during my last position, as you said, I was a CIO at Unit 8200, which is the Israeli NSA. It was a big department of 150 engineers. And we have the idea to bring wide access to all the data and information we had, and also to some AI capabilities we have built. And we wanted all data analysts and all developers and all cyber attackers actually to have these capabilities and democratize the use of data and AI. So we have created a portal, an internal portal to bring all people in the organization to work with that. But actually, in such a regulated environment of actually doing defense and doing intelligence, it was very difficult to provide all these capabilities to a lot of people because it introduced some unique attack vectors and unique permissions. So I had an idea to call a really good friend who is now the CTO and co-founder of AIM Security. His name is Adir Gross. And Adir is coming from a vulnerability research background. So that time he worked for a company called Laminar, which was later acquired by Rubrik in the DSPM world. So he already knew how to work with a lot of data. And he came to help me to understand what's the best way to provide this massive access to all the people. It was like the early times when ChatGPT was just brought into the public audience for the AI. We already knew the power of AI, but this was the first time that generative AI was exposed in such a beautiful chatbot way that we understood that there is even a bigger opportunity in the market now, not just to do something inside the military, but maybe also to provide our capabilities outside of the military. So we decided to actually do something together to find a company, and this is how AIM was born. So our mission was to democratize the use of AI and bring the use of data and AI to everyone. And actually the core capabilities we've built in our experience in the military are the same capabilities we are leveraging now in AIM solution.
Wow, what a great story of how the two of you came together. And of course, Rubrik was my former employer. And so I'm excited to see what they're doing with, of course, the Laminar product and just having, I think, that expertise with data, with your IDF background. That leads me to be super excited about the mission of AIM Security. Of course, AIM Security is still very much in stealth, but as much as you can share maybe with us, what are some of the top use cases for Gen AI in the context of a typical enterprise?
So we are witnessing what we like to call the Gen AI adoption journey. For all enterprises we see three main phases of this journey. Usually they go one by one, but sometimes enterprises go all over and actually have some use cases around all the three phases. The first phase is the adoption of public Gen AI tools. These are all the ChatGPT, Bard, Bing, but actually all the third parties that also have Gen AI features within them, embedded within the product. And leveraging these introduce a lot of DLP problems. So it's actually not a new, I want to say, use case because DLP was here for a long time. But now it's DLP on steroids because employees have the incentive to go and submit sensitive data. Working with ChatGPT is so useful. You can go copy code, you can copy legal terms, you can copy emails, sensitive emails. So users have the incentive to go and upload sensitive data. And the applications, on the other hand, have the incentive to store and learn their models on their data. So the first category or the first phase is the adoption of public Gen AI tools. And the main risk there is DLP. Second phase is enterprise AI. And this is when enterprises leverage copilots mainly. So they can take GitHub Copilot, but also Microsoft Copilot or any other enterprise Gen AI vendor. For that category, I would say that DLP is not a huge risk because now you have a vendor which is reliable for your data. But what you do have is two main things. First, a model that is connected to internal data sources and may flatten your internal authorization layer. For example, we have a lot of stories of employees or customers leveraging Microsoft Copilot and then go accessing using the chatbot sensitive data. And sometimes it creates unauthorized access to sensitive data. Second, it requires sometimes an additional governance layer because now it's a tool internally in the organization. And sometimes organizations have some, maybe because of regulations, maybe because of internal policy, some use cases they do not want employees to discuss with the chats. And I can give you later example for that specific use case as well. Third one is homegrown applications. It's when companies, mainly product companies, want to add Gen AI features to their own products. And now when they expose chatbots to the external world, they create a new attack surface to their applications, and they can be attacked via prompt injections or jailbreaks or any other unique Gen AI attacks. So it's three categories: the adoption of public Gen AI tools, the adoption of enterprise AI, and the integration of Gen AI features within products. And use cases are all around this space.
Thank you for walking us through the use cases in such clarity, right? And also distinguishing that some of these use cases or challenges that we're seeing are not net new, right? But what is net new is how users are interacting with some of these Gen AI platforms. And so that brings us to the question of governance. You touched upon that a little bit earlier, Matan, but what does it mean to govern the use of generative AI in the enterprise?
So first, to govern the use of generative AI, start with visibility, knowing what kind of applications and what kind of models your employees are using and in what way they're leveraging the power of generative AI. Let's start with the most basic category, which I've created, the public Gen AI tools. Governance there will be to understand what tools people are using and what risks these tools create to your environment. And if people are using tools, you want to understand what they are using it for. So if your employees are using ChatGPT, for example, to analyze CVs of new employees, then I want to say that you need to understand that there is a Gen AI mechanism in your decision making for employment of new hires. So that's really important for you to understand what kind of topics are being discussed with the chats. Same goes with internal deployments. When you have, for example, enterprise ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot. So I promised you a specific story. So we are working with a really promising and really creative and innovative finance company. And that company, they want to embed Gen AI to all internal workflows they have inside the organization because they understand the power of Gen AI. But on the other hand, they don't want that in loan underwriting, for example, Gen AI will be a major tool because they want to avoid any bias. And the way to avoid bias for them would be to ensure that there is a human in the loop. So they want their loan underwriters to ask questions about laws in Delaware or in Michigan or anywhere in the planet with ChatGPT because it's so powerful. But they do not want that people will go and ask questions like, do you think Nancy Wang, for example, should get a loan? So the governance here, and actually there is no specific regulations for that yet, but companies already understand the risks of using generative AI and already start to create their own policy in order to avoid any legal suits or any potential risks. So governance for a finance company in that front would be to avoid that in decision making for loan underwriting, generative AI will not be a part of the process.
And that's good that you broke down those use cases that are evolving, right? Because certainly we've seen when generative AI usage goes wrong in an enterprise, such as giving away free airline tickets, for example, in the news that we just saw. So here's maybe something that is on top of mind for many of our CISOs or heads of data governance is, where do you see the governance of AI evolving based on all the conversations that you're having?
I'll start talking with an example which is quite tactics and a bit more technical, but I think it will help me to understand the vision here. Let's take Amazon Q as an example. It's a very useful copilot that Amazon released. It's less popular than Microsoft Copilot, but we already see the adoption of Amazon Q. One of the CISOs I'm working with, they decided to connect Amazon Q to their Jira. Their developers can ask questions now about Jira tickets, as an example. Developers started asking questions like, what are the top 5 security risks within the internal project we have or we are developing? That's a tricky question because if the model answers the right question based on the tickets now being accessed to the model, so now all developers in the organizations are able actually to learn what are the top 5 security risks. So that's quite tricky. I want to avoid the wide information going to all employees in my organization. On the other end, if the information there is not correct, I don't want people will actually base their work upon an incorrect answer of the model. So the decision that CISO made was to avoid asking the chat security questions. So the story I'm telling here about Amazon Q proves that there is a need of a new grid of authorization because now it's not just about the authorization of what employees can access what kind of data, but the question here is another question. There is an additional question about what they can do with their data with generative AI. And this grid is completely new. So I think the governance of AI will evolve to a new grid of employees, data, and generative AI capabilities and features. And the connection between all these dots is a new connection, a new grid that will need to be created. So that's my vision. And that's the way I think we will see the evolvement of generative AI governance. I want to say it provides also the ability, as you said before, and I love that, Nancy, You said before that some of the problems that we have here are old problems. Data security is an old problem. Data authorization, it's an old problem. Those problems are really difficult. Maybe with models and generative AI, we'll be able to create a new grid, which will be easier to maintain and will be much more granular than we had before. So there is a new need here. I think the vision is very big, but also I want to say there is like a really big opportunity as well.
I like the way that you just laid that out, Matan, which is just because someone, in the example you gave, just because a developer has access to a Jira ticket doesn't mean that they should be able to understand the full security context for the code that they're working on. And I think what you might be getting to there is the understanding of intent and contextual awareness of someone's questions or someone's requests. So I think that's certainly a very powerful direction for governance of AI. And it's super exciting for AIM Security to be on the forefront and the bleeding edge of that. So next, I want to maybe turn to my favorite set of questions, which is understanding more about AIM Security and the product itself. And so let's start with, obviously, we might have heard about the rising tide of LLM security as a sector and many companies within this space. How is AIM Security's approach unique from the other LLM security companies that might be out there?
Yeah. So first, it's very exciting to work in a hot topic. And personally, I like competition and I like the creation of new things. And I feel that if a lot of talent comes to work in the space, we will create great things that will change the world. So I find the space really exciting to work with. I feel that AIM is unique by first targeting more enterprise use cases. So even before going to use cases around application security, what I see in the market is that most of GenAI adoption is actually from enterprise perspective. It starts with the adoption of public generative AI tools. And I feel this part is really important because you can learn a lot from what people are doing with public GenAI tools and what kind of policies I want to bring in to that use. So I feel that this category, which is the, I would say, most common in the adoption in the market, is quite unique. But afterwards, we're moving to the enterprise AI category. And I feel that AIM takes more of the enterprise use cases. Second thing, we're bringing a very holistic approach. Our IP or our magic is actually analyzing data, understanding the contents, and providing, as you said, the contextual awareness and understanding what is the right access to the right data. And this kind of engine or mechanism can be delivered anywhere. It can deliver between users and public GenAI models. It can be delivered between users and internal applications to internal models, but it can be delivered also as an LLM firewall between an internal model and your application, which is exposed outside. AIM is about an holistic perspective, an holistic solution for all kinds of use cases. So as a CISO or as a security expert, you will not need to work with a lot of niche solutions for all kinds of use cases in generative AI. We already have enough security tools in your security stack. You will have one solution with all use cases. So I think this is a unique approach AIM brings to the market.
I like that, especially in this climate where you hear from CISOs top of mind, which is tell me what I need to do. Give me an opinionated stance or recommendation. And the fact that AIM does that, especially with enterprise use cases, certainly very exciting to see that as a differentiation. We talked about how the space is evolving so quickly. How does AIM Security stay ahead of evolving security threats and also be able to quickly adapt strategies based on what you're seeing out there in the market?
Yeah, it is a difficult mission to be ahead of the space and to understand. And we have to have security researchers and AI experts and data analysts that are focusing only on researching and learning what can be new and what we can add And I feel that unlike other startups or other companies that have to be need to be focused only on what is sellable now, in the AI security space, we have to research and understand what are going to be the challenges in the next month or even the next year. You have to. And I feel this is unique for startups because startups are all about being laser focused on only one problem, one specific problem. In AI security, we have to be ahead of the game and we have to learn what are the new models that are going to be published in the market, what are the new attack vectors that attackers are going to leverage, and what is the best ways to analyze data and to take from it the user intent. And in order to do so, we have to have security researchers and data analysts and ML scientists to work on problems that are still not defined well enough. And this is our strategy. We have a very talented people to work specifically on that missions as well.
Got it. And I'm excited to see what comes out of the group as AIM continues to tackle some of the top of mind challenges for enterprises and Gen AI security. And so I want to end with this question, Matan, which is, we talked about you're working with a very cutting edge, very innovative fintech company. Can you share with us maybe one or a few success stories that customers have achieved so far with AIM security?
Yeah, of course. We are working in the cybersecurity space, and I feel that highly regulated companies they always bring the most beautiful and interesting success stories. So we are working also with a healthcare company, and they provide mental health assistance. So actually, they have the access for a very sensitive data of their patients, and they wanted to be really innovative. So when they had like the ability to allow people, their developers and their doctors and their practitioners to leverage generative AI, they let people do that. But actually with the AIM, they were able to see that people are uploading to these kind of applications really sensitive patient data. As I said before, this is like the usual DLP use case, but now it's on steroids. So with the detection we provided them, they understood they have to take an action. And unfortunately, the most intuitive action most enterprises take is now to block all these kind of tools. But blocking these kind of tools is blocking innovation. It's to block the internet. You have to let people use that. So with AIM, we let them two options. First option was a very granular policy provided that when their people, practitioners or developers accessed public Gen AI tools, if we recognized patient data, we cut it off or we blocked the prompt or even masked the data. Again, usual DLP, but much, much more granular. Then they understood that practitioners might use the chats in order to understand what is the right treatment for patients. It's very similar to the loan underwriting example I gave you. They understood that they want practitioners or doctors to go to the chat and ask questions about medicines or about diseases, but they do not want that practitioners will go and ask, what is the specific care I need to provide to a specific patient? And this is not the DLP use case actually anymore. Now it's about the user intent, as you said. Now it's about the contextual data and what is the user trying to achieve here. And they wanted that these kind of prompts will be blocked. So they will make sure that practitioners are actually in the loop and they're the one to take the decision. So they can leverage Gen AI. They can ask questions about medicines. They can ask questions about hospitals. They can ask questions about diseases, but they need to be the ones to make the final decision. What is the right care for a specific patient? And I feel that this is a really unique story because unfortunately, most healthcare organizations will take a blocking approach for these kind of use cases. They will avoid the use of generative AI. This is the easiest decision to take. And then I feel that their doctors will actually provide not such a good care as the care that the doctors working in the company I've just shared are providing.
Wow, that's such an impactful story. I think we've covered so much in this segment, from working with fintech, talking about regulation, of course, your illustrious background as a CIO at IDF itself, and also finally the success story for the healthcare organization. I'm just super jazzed that there's so much more to come. You're still early in the AIM security journey. For the audience here, we're excited to share with you the links to follow Matan as well as AIM security and catch them on their journey.
Thank you very much, Nancy, for the opportunity. Actually, it's my first podcast. So thank you for the opportunity. It was very fun. And I feel that this space is like amazing. And I invite everyone to learn more and explore more how to do GenAI security.
Thank you for watching our very first interview on the DeFUD Me podcast. For more of our hot takes, please share our content with others. Click like, leave a nice comment, and subscribe. Doing so makes a big difference.